My name is Alex, and this isn't the kind of story you tell by the dim light of a lamp, savoring the details like some cheap detective novel. This is a confession, a final attempt by a soul locked in the screaming silence of its own skull to understand how it all came to this. How I came to this. There will be no justifications here, only facts, burned into memory with the acid of pain, and that one news story that became the final drop, overflowing the cup of my despair. It all started, as it often does, with the small things. With Elena, my Elena, with whom I had lived for 12 years, becoming a little more distant. Her laugh, which I loved so much, was heard less often within the walls of our home, and more often on her phone, during texts with someone invisible. She started taking better care of herself, which at first even pleased me. I thought, maybe a new cream, maybe the gym. Now I understand. It wasn't the gym. It was a theater, and she was preparing to take the stage for a different audience. She smelled of someone else's cologne, a faint, barely noticeable trail of aftershave that wasn't mine. I smelled it when she returned from a girls' night at a friend's place. I stayed silent. I swallowed that smell along with the lump of suspicion that seemed vile, unworthy of us, of our history. I had built the house of our love over 13 years, 1 year of dating, and 12 of marriage, and to destroy it with one careless word, one baseless accusation. I was afraid of being the destroyer, but the house was already crumbling. From the inside, it was being undermined by the quiet, methodical work of an invisible worm. Then, on her phone, which she now never left unattended, even when going to the shower, I saw a message. She forgot to turn it off. It was lying on the kitchen table and vibrated with a notification. The name Mark popped up on the screen with one phrase. Today was unreal. Can't wait for next time. The world didn't collapse in that instant. It froze. The sounds of the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock vanished. All that remained was that line of text, blazing on the black screen. I stood there, bracing my hands against the countertop, feeling the floor give way beneath me. She came out of the bathroom in a towel, her hair wet. "Is something wrong?" she asked, and her voice was so ordinary, so familiar, that I almost believed I had imagined it. "Who is Mark?" I asked, and my own voice sounded alien, flat. She hesitated for just a second. Her face flashed a palette of emotions, surprise, fear, and then an instantly applied layer of calm. "Oh, Mark, that's the new trainer at the gym. He sends those messages to everyone after personal sessions. Marketing, you know. Client outreach." She laughed, came over to me, hugged me. She smelled of my shampoo. There were no foreign scents, and I, like a complete idiot, believed her. I wanted so badly to believe. I breathed in that familiar scent, held her close, and felt such relief I could have cried. I cursed myself for my suspiciousness, for my stupidity. I kissed her wet hair and whispered how much I loved her, how afraid I was of losing her. A lie is like alcohol. The first shot burns your throat, but then you get used to it. You even start to enjoy it. Elena acquired a taste for it. Her excuses became more elaborate, her absences longer. She talked about new projects at work, sudden business trips, about a friend urgently needing help with a move. I nodded. I believed. Because the alternative was to admit that my world was a lie. And then I saw them. It was a Saturday. She said she was going out of town with friends for a picnic. I decided to surprise her. I bought her favorite crab legs, made dinner, set the table. I waited. Around 5 in the evening, something made me go to the window. Our street was empty, and right under our windows, 50 meters from our entrance, her gray sedan parked. He was driving. I didn't really see his face, just his silhouette. And her, my Elena. She turned to him. He put his hand on her neck, and they kissed. Not a peck on the cheek. It was a long, deep, intimate kiss between lovers. I recoiled from the window as if from a hot stove. My ears rang. Blood, thick and hot, pounded in my temples. I stood in the middle of the room, clenching my fists, unable to breathe. I heard the car door slam, heard the engine rumble as it drove him away. I heard her footsteps in the hallway, A cheerful, light patter. The key clicked in the lock. She walked in, rosy-cheeked, eyes shining. "Hey Alex, you're home. I'm so tired we drove all over the county looking for that perfect spot." She was talking, and I just looked at her. Looked at this woman I thought I knew better than myself. And I saw an actress. A very talented actress in a play where I was the only audience, the idiot applauding her lies. "How was the picnic?" I asked, my voice very, very quiet. "It was great. The sun, the fresh air," she said, unloading a bag from the supposed picnic. It contained clean napkins, unopened water. "Crab legs?" She saw the table. "For me?" I felt physically sick. I turned around, walked out onto the balcony, and stood there, gulping down the cold autumn air. She didn't come out after me. I heard her pour herself some wine, turn on the TV. We didn't talk that evening. I slept on the couch. She didn't ask why. She pretended everything was fine. Her calm was worse than any hysterics. It meant she didn't care, that she didn't need me anymore. The next day I went to that very fitness club. I approached the administrator, a nice girl, and asked if they had a trainer named Mark. She looked surprised. "We have 2 Marks, Mark Johnson and Mark Williams. Which one do you need?" "The one who sends messages to clients after workouts," I asked, already knowing the answer. The girl looked at me like I was crazy. "I'm sorry, but we don't do that. Trainers might call to discuss a program, but we don't do mass messages." I thanked her and left. The world around me hadn't changed. People were going to work, the sun was shining. But for me, it had died. Finally and irrevocably. Now the hardest part began. I became an investigator of my own life. I looked for evidence of the guilt of the woman I had once idolized. I connected tracking services to her phone. I checked bank statements. Money was going to strange checks from cafes and stores. Cute trinkets I never saw on her. I started following her. It wasn't me. It was some obsessed, sick person I had become. I took time off work and spent hours sitting in the car across from her office. And one day I saw her come out, not alone. With her was him, tall, fit, with the smug grin of a cocky kid. He held her waist, she laughed, that very laugh that had once been mine. They got into his expensive SUV and drove off. I followed them in a daze. They went to a hotel on the outskirts of the city, the same one where Elena and I had celebrated our first anniversary. I sat in the car and stared at a window on the 3rd floor. I didn't cry. Everything inside me had turned to stone. There was only a cold, icy rage and pain, a universal, all-consuming pain that made me want to howl at the moon, tearing my chest open with my claws, just to make it stop. They were in there for 3 hours. When they came out, she adjusted his collar. He slapped her on the ass. It was such a familiar, such a vulgar gesture that I almost threw up right there in the car. I couldn't take it anymore. That evening I waited for her, sat at the table and waited. She came back in the evening with bags from an expensive boutique. "Hi," she said, as if nothing had happened. "Why so glum?" "Elena, we need to talk." She sighed, sat down opposite me, pretended to be tired. "What's wrong now? Problems at work?" "I saw you today, with him, at the Evergreen Hotel." She wasn't expecting that. Her mask slipped for a second, and I saw fear. But only for a second. "Oh, yeah." She quickly got her bearings. "That was a corporate client. We were discussing a contract. The cafe was too noisy, so we went to the hotel lobby bar. You don't think—" "I think you're lying to me," I shouted at her for the first time. "I know everything. I know about your trainer. I know where the money is going. I know you were in a room with him. Stop lying." Silence hung heavy and thick between us. She looked at me, and there was no remorse in her eyes, no fear. There was anger, irritation. "Fine," she said coldly. "Since you know everything, why the drama? Yes, I'm with him. Yes, I'm cheating on you. And what are you going to do about it now?" Her question hung in the air. And what? What could I do? Beg? Cry? Threaten? She took out a cigarette. She'd quit when we got married and lit it right there in the kitchen. "I'm tired, Alex. Of you, of this life, of the constant budgeting, of your endless talks about the future. Mark. He lives for today. He gives me excitement. He's a real man, not an accountant. Every word hit me like a hammer. She wasn't just admitting to an affair. She was methodically destroying everything between us, all our years, our love. "Get out," I hissed. "Get out of my house right now." "Your house?" she smirked. "This is our shared house, darling, and I'll only leave with half of it. But for now, I'll leave." To him, "I'll think about whether to file for divorce right away or to torment you a little longer." She stood up, took her cup to the sink, and went to the bedroom to pack. I sat there, crushed. My rage evaporated, leaving behind only emptiness and a feeling of complete, total defeat. She left, slammed the door. I was left alone in our quiet, dead apartment. I didn't sleep all night, sat in the dark and stared at one point. Thoughts swirled. Fragments of memories flashed through my head, her smile on our wedding day, how we painted this very kitchen, how she cried when her mother died and I held her hand. Now that hand was touching someone else. In the morning, I turned on the TV, just to drown out the silence. The news was on. The anchor with a stone face was talking about traffic accidents, about politics. Then the picture changed. It showed a street in some suburban neighborhood, cordoned off by police. A shocking story from Phoenix. The anchor's voice became even more formal. Last night on Elm Street, an appalling incident occurred motivated by jealousy. A local man tracked down his estranged wife and her new companion. During an argument, he fired several shots from a hunting rifle. I froze, watched the screen. They showed a close-up of a man in handcuffs, being led to a police car. His face was impassive, empty. And in his eyes, I saw the same thing I felt. That all-consuming emptiness and pain. Preliminary reports indicate that after the shots, the man inflicted several wounds on the victim with a bladed weapon. The victim died at the scene from his injuries. I turned off the TV. The room was silent again. But now the silence was different. It was loud. It was screaming inside me with that news story. The image of that man wouldn't leave my head. His empty gaze, his broken, yet somehow calm posture. He had done it. He had stopped the pain. He had gotten revenge. That thought, like a worm, burrowed into my brain and began to eat away at it from the inside. Why could he do it? Why did he find the strength? And me? I was sitting here, in an empty apartment, taking it, enduring her laughter behind a wall, in someone else's bedroom, enduring her betrayal. I was nothing. I was a rag. I got up and went to the garage. There, in an old safe, was my father's rifle, a good, solid hunting weapon. He'd left it to me. He hadn't gone hunting in years. I opened the safe. The smell of oil and metal hit my nose. I took the heavy, cold barrel in my hands. It felt so real, so substantial. Unlike my disintegrating life, I didn't sleep the next night, sitting in the garage and stroking that rifle. I wasn't planning anything. My thoughts were chaotic. One moment I saw her face, then his smug grin, then that man from the news, his calm, empty gaze, and then a message came. To my phone, from Elena, in the afternoon when I was back in the apartment staring at the wall. "Alex, we need to meet. Discuss the division of assets. Mark says you have no right to claim my share, as you're the one initiating the divorce with your unfounded accusations. Let's meet tomorrow at the cafe on Main Street at 6 p.m. He'll be with me. Don't try to make a scene." Her, my wife, inviting me to a meeting with her lover to tell me I'll be left with nothing, to humiliate me one more time. The final drop, the one that overflows the cup. Something snapped inside me. That internal fuse that had held me all these weeks blew. Rage, cold and clear, finally replaced the pain. I looked at the rifle standing in the corner. The answer was so simple, so obvious. I won't describe in detail what happened next. I'll just say that I didn't go to that meeting. Instead, I went to the garage. I took out the rifle. I remembered everything my father had taught me. Cleaning, oiling, loading. Every movement was slow, precise, almost ritualistic. I felt nothing. No fear, no anger. Only an icy calm. I knew what to do. I knew where he lived. I had followed him before. An upscale new condo downtown. He often took her there during the day while I was at work. I waited for him in the underground parking garage, in the darkness between strangers' cars. I waited a long time. The clock struck 9, then 10, and then finally, headlights came on. His big black SUV slowly pulled into its spot. He was alone. He got out of the car, humming something to himself. He was wearing an expensive suit, confident, successful. The master of his universe, the master of my wife. I stepped out of the shadows. He heard the footsteps, turned around, saw me, saw the rifle in my hands. His smug grin instantly slid off his face, replaced by confusion, then animal fear. "You... what do you want?" His voice trembled. He stepped back towards his car. "Elena, did she tell you? Listen, I didn't mean to. It just happened." He was searching for words, trying to justify himself, seeing the barrel pointed at him. In his eyes was the very fear I wanted to see. But it wasn't enough. Far less than I expected. That fear was petty, insignificant. It wasn't worth my shattered life. I don't remember the sound of the shot. I only remember the recoil kicking my shoulder. I remember how he jerked strangely and slumped into a squat, leaning against the wheel of his car. A crimson stain began to spread on his white shirt. He looked at me with wide, uncomprehending eyes. He didn't scream. He just sat there and looked. I moved closer. My hand lowered the rifle on its own. I looked at him. At this pretty boy. This real man who gave my wife excitement. Now he was just a scared, wounded animal. In my coat pocket was a folding knife I always took to the garage. I took it out. The blade glinted under the dim light of the garage lamps. He muttered something. Maybe, no. Maybe, sorry. I couldn't make it out. And I didn't want to. I won't describe what happened next. That will remain between me and that dark parking garage. I'll only say that at some point I understood what I was doing. I understood that I had become that man from the news. And it brought me not the expected relief, but a new, even thicker, stickier darkness. I hadn't stopped the pain. I had become it. I walked out onto the street. It was night. A fine, biting rain was falling. I walked on the wet asphalt, and people passing by gave me a wide berth. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. The hand clutching the knife in my pocket was sticky. Then there were sirens, lights, rough hands. I didn't resist. They cuffed me, threw me into a car. At the station, I was silent. I stared at the wall and saw her face. Not the face from today, but the one from years ago, when she looked at me and said, yes. They gave me a phone call. I dialed her number. She answered immediately, her voice agitated, frightened. She probably already knew. "Why?" was the first thing she said. Not, "How are you?" Not, "What happened?" "Why did you do it?" I was silent for a second, swallowing the lump in my throat. "So you remember," I said quietly. "So you always remember that everything has a price, and that you will pay for everything too, not with money, with memory." I hung up. The detective was saying something to me, but I didn't hear him. I sat on the chair in the office, looked through the barred window at the fading morning, and thought about one thing, about that man from the news. I wondered, did he feel the same thing? That piercing, deafening silence inside after the shots faded? Did he understand that he hadn't taken revenge on her, but on himself? That he hadn't killed him, but his former self? Now I understand. Sitting in this cell, awaiting trial, I write these lines. Not for justification, not for leniency, but so that maybe one single person hearing this will stop, will not go down my path. Because this path doesn't lead to the light, it leads to a dead end, into a darkness from which there is no return. Pain is not an enemy you have to fight to the death. It's a signal that something has ended, and you need to find the strength not to destroy the remnants, but to start building something new. Even if it seems there is no strength left. It is there. I didn't find it. I found a rifle. And I became a permanent prisoner of that very news story I once saw on TV. My story is over. Yours is not yet. Don't repeat my mistakes.